Gregorian calendar became the only way to think about time. We must contemplate what the effects are of living in this unawareness and reconsider history, because it has always been manipulated by those in power. We must open our consciousness and ask, what if? Yes, what if we lived under a different standard of time?
A calendar is a way you measure time. When you use an irregular calendar that's completely illogical, and yet you claim that your scientific discovery is completely logical and objective, you have a clash. And at this point, the power holders will always want to rewrite history to serve their own means. But in fact, the principle of indigenous or being native to a land, all human beings have an indigenous part and then a part that has been affected by modern 1260 time, which has been the absolute control that the Gregorian calendar has played in bringing people into this world where time is money, everything goes faster and faster. We've created machines, the computer, all of it. All of these technologies have shown us that there actually is something greater than what we can control. Because in fact, at this time, with the use of cell phones and with the use of the internet, information is now simultaneous across the planet. And because of that, there are changes going on that none of us can individually see happening. And so we may become extremely discouraged and think that the world is totally going to hell and we'll never get out of this war situation. But what's really going on is there's a whole other frequency that is pulling us forward from the future.
There were many effects. I think not only what it did was create an imbalance within our frequencies and the level that we exist as. You know, the Mother Earth is the one that gives us life. The Mother Earth is the one that sustains us, and every aspect that goes out of balance with that, it affects us, not only our mental or physical, but also our emotional state. So when people come in and try to control other people through religion or values and stuff like that, I think it has an eternal effect on us.
In the early 20th century, B.F. Skinner wrote about the effect upon mankind due to pure technological change. He said it would drive people to insanity. We can ask the Mayan people, the Australian Aborigine, the Amazon forest dwellers, and the Native Americans what happened to their concept of time. And we all soon realize that it is in the interest of those who are in positions of power to eliminate it and replace it with a calendar convenient to their needs.
And I saw how there were so many ways in which people restricted themselves by this artificial timing frequency. And it actually starts when, certainly in the United States, when you entered school, you were immediately given a calendar and a watch to learn how to tell time. But you weren't asked what time you wanted to actually live by. So there was a huge assumption made from the beginning of school that you were going to follow the Gregorian calendar and the clock.
I think we only need to look at pre-communist Russia. One of the things that Lenin had to deal with in pre-communist Russia was that education was so poor in Russia that it was going to take a long time to educate people. Well, Stalin succeeded with it because he understood that production was the key to being a powerful country, but as well as that, he had to educate people. Okay? So education has always been an element that has always been governed by the rich. Okay? The trustees of any university anywhere or any school district anywhere are generally the leaders in the community. Now, do they try to keep us ignorant on purpose? Possibly, because we might stop spending money. Are we tax-producing units? Substantially, yes, because that's the way a country can borrow money when it doesn't have money, like the United States went bankrupt in 1933. Okay? But they can still leverage on the basis of how many people we have here and how many we might produce. Okay? That's why we can be in debt the way we are. So, I would have to say that overall, particularly the church, for example, at one time the world studied chemistry, studied physics, and it also studied alchemy. Well, they took alchemy out. Why? because it's the first step to transmutation, to changing things.
Whether it's a conspiracy or not that has kept the Gregorian calendar in existence for so long, it still is a liberating experience for people to see that through the Mayan calendar that we are part of a divine plan. And actually, I would like to add in this context, we are part of a divine plan that will lead to the crumbling of a lot of currently existing hierarchies. So obviously there is a great interest amongst certain people in powerful positions not to have this widely known, or to distort it or deliver it in a false way that makes it non-accessible to people.
For the Maya, it is very clear that time is a fourth dimensional law, and that the fourth dimension governs the third dimension. But as long as we are living in a 1260 old world, we will continue to be a materialistic society that lacks understanding of the Mayan concept of time. According to the Mayans, we are time. Time resides within the human biological species, which follows a natural cycle of time. For the Mayans, time does not change. All things change in time. Time is not in motion, but we move through time as our consciousness moves from one event to another. And by time we exist, all, in eternal existences. Even though we appear separate in time, we still are one in all existent time. The universe, from its most minute component to the whole system itself, is governed by a constant, a frequency that keeps everything in order, in balance, and synchronized in harmony. This single timing frequency was codified as the sacred calendar of the Maya.
Yeah, the sacred calendar is totally based on nature. In our ways, we have forgotten that connection with Mother Earth. So the sacred calendar, the purpose is connect with nature again. Can you imagine a humanity that's honoring nature every day? This will create enormous changes in the consciousness of our people. That's why it's important.
The Maya calendar can facilitate a better connection between us and nature, because when we study the Maya calendar and we follow the Maya calendar, we can come into closer relationship with the cycles of nature. Mayan time philosophy is based upon observing the cycles in nature, everything from plant growth to the birth and life cycle of a human being, to the greater cycles in the outer universe, the planets, and the great cycle of precession, this great 26,000-year precessional cycle. And the Tzolk'in, the 260-day calendar, is the key to all these different domains of human experience. So when we place ourselves into right rhythm, right relationship with this calendar, then we just immediately come into better, more intimate union with nature and with other human beings.
I think that in having a time system of measurement like the calendar helps us to keep up with a steady evolution growth pattern that we may have. I think that in a cycle, just for example, of a seed being planted, it sprouting, it growing, it being fructious, the pollen and insemination, and then creating the seed again that's going to be planted one more time, that's a timeline. I think that sometimes we get caught up into having specifics because the weather does change. You know, the effects that we have had on the Earth is creating global warming. You know, the polar caps are melting. There's floods and all this stuff coming. There's more earthquakes. So, you know, that cycle is going to change. And I think that that we're affected by not only our limitations that we give ourselves, but also we're affected by our actions. And having a time frame, I think, is just to remind us like how things are going to come to pass And maybe the prophecies and all that are saying, you know, to quit consuming yourself with the material world. There's also the spiritual and the emotional and the physical sense that you got to take care of to create that balance. So those calendars and those timelines, I think, are there to keep us on track and to keep us going. And if it has to do with evolution, then that's a system of growth.